They had been feeding their toddler the same new protein for 10 days. The golden retriever had been sitting beside the high chair since day one. Nobody made the connection until it was almost too late to matter. Hadley and John Ferris were not first-time parents. Their son Leo was their second child. They had done this before. They knew what a food reaction looked like. Hives, facial swelling, difficulty breathing. They had the Benadryl in the cabinet and the pediatrician's number in the phone, and the calm confidence of people who had navigated toddlerhood once already and survived it without incident. They were not worried about anything. Their golden retriever, Chip, was 4 years old. He had always been food-motivated, the kind of dog who materialized from any room in the house at the sound of a wrapper opening, who positioned himself strategically beneath the high chair during meals, who had developed a specific posture of patience near any cooking activity. So when Chip began sitting beside Leo's high chair at every mealtime approximately 10 days after they introduced cashew butter into Leo's diet, they filed it easily. He smells the new food. He's hoping Leo drops some. They moved him. He returned. John built a low barrier with the kitchen chairs to keep Chip on the far side of the kitchen during meals. Chip went around it, sat beside the high chair, did not beg, did not attempt to reach the food, just sat and looked at Leo, not at the tray. At Leo, Hadley noticed that detail on day 7. She mentioned it to John in the evening. He's not looking at the food. John considered this. He's probably learned that staring at the food gets him moved. That was reasonable. That was the most reasonable explanation. They agreed and moved on. On day 8, Leo ate a full portion of cashew butter on toast. An hour later, he was fussy in a way that felt different from his normal range. Quieter, less coordinated, rubbing his face against his hands. No hives, no visible swelling, no difficulty breathing. Hadley checked his face and neck. Nothing. She gave him a nap and he was fine afterward. On day 9, same meal, same fussiness, same face rubbing. On day 10, Chip did not sit beside the high chair. He got between the high chair and the kitchen counter, where Hadley was preparing the toast. He stood in front of the counter and would not move. She stepped around him. He repositioned. She moved him with her hand on his collar. He sat for 4 seconds and returned. She looked at him. He looked at the counter. He was not looking at her. He was not looking at the jar. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Hadley thought about it for 30 seconds. Then she called the pediatrician. Dr. Nisha Patel asked one question. What's the new food in his diet? Cashew butter, Hadley said, about 10 days ago. Dr. Patel said, bring him in today. Don't feed him the cashew butter again until we see you. The allergy panel confirmed a cashew allergy. Moderate severity, IgE-mediated, the kind that produces reactions that build over repeated exposures. The face rubbing after meals was the body's early response to histamine. The fussiness was systemic discomfort. No visible hives on the first several exposures. The reaction was happening internally before it expressed on the surface. Dr. Patel explained that with tree nut allergies, the first exposures sometimes appear mild. The reaction builds with each subsequent exposure. By the 10th or 12th exposure in a sensitized child, the response can shift from subclinical to an anaphylactic without warning. She looked at Hadley. 1 more week of daily exposures, and we would be having a very different conversation. Has your dog ever positioned themselves near your child's food in a way you didn't understand until later? These stories need to be heard. Leave yours below. Chip had been tracking the cashew oil compounds in Leo's breath and on his skin since day 1. Dogs detect allergen-related chemical changes, histamine precursors, lipid oxidation byproducts. at concentrations far below any human sensory threshold. He had been sitting between Leo and the food source because the food source was what smelled wrong, not because he wanted it, because it was the thing changing the chemistry of the child he was watching. Hadley sat on the kitchen floor that evening with Chip. John stood in the doorway with Leo on his hip, watching. She didn't say anything to the dog. She just put her hand on his head. He leaned into it. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Leo is now 3. He carries an EpiPen in his bag to preschool, in his grandmother's purse, in the glove compartment of the car. Chip still sits beside the high chair at meals. He doesn't get moved anymore. He's allowed to look. Next, the night a husky got between a baby and something nobody else could see, and held the line until someone understood. The allergy panel also revealed a secondary sensitivity to other tree nuts, walnuts, pecans. That would require management going forward. Dr. Patel referred them to a pediatric allergist who walked them through introduction protocols, threshold considerations, and the specific signs of anaphylaxis in children under 3. It was a lot of information in a short time. John sat in the allergist's waiting room afterward and thought about Chip sitting beside the high chair for 10 days, about his eyes on Leo's face, not the tray, about the specific positioning of a dog whose entire behavioral history said food, and who was, for those 10 days, sitting beside the food source while paying no attention to the food. The allergist, when John mentioned it, was neither surprised nor dismissive. Dr. Way had heard versions of this before, not often. She explained the mechanism. Tree nut proteins in the bloodstream, following repeated exposure in a sensitizing child, alter the systemic inflammatory profile. The skin, breath, and perspiration chemistry shift in ways that are subtle to a human, but that represent, to a dog's olfactory system, a detectable change in the person it has been tracking continuously. Chip had been smelling something different in Leo each day. Not the food on the tray. The food in Leo's body, what it was doing to his chemistry after he ate it. That was what he had been sitting beside the high chair to monitor. Hadley bought Chip the most expensive bag of treats the pet store stocked. He accepted them with the dignified restraint of a dog who had done his job and did not require ceremony. He still sits beside the high chair. He always will.